se fui mandar X, Attention, quelque chose.
Good to go. Welcome, everybody, to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for November the 12th, 2024. The way we proceed is when we get to the zoning bylaw amendment, if you have any questions, please raise your arm and state your name and address so it could be added to the minutes of our meeting, okay? So I'll call the meeting to order. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Go ahead.
I have a conflict of interest through the language of the code of conduct.
Okay.
So it'll be up to you. Would you like me to explain?
Can you explain, please?
Okay, yes. My grandson does take courses with the martial arts. So when this application was filed, I sent a message to the Integrity Commissioner, and he just came back yesterday from Portugal to answer me, and he said that, yes, through the language of the code of conduct, I would have a conflict of interest.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's stated. All right. We'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Everybody's got one. We're good. Mark, you've got the agenda. All right.
Mark, did you have a comment to add there?
No. Do you have any questions or comment, Mark?
No.
Okay. And so we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes of our last meeting.
We need to adopt the agenda first.
Yes.
And she needs to read
No
the
problem.
resolution.
I'm sorry.
No problem. It is moved by Kathleen Marchand and seconded by Dan Gagne. Be it resolved that the agenda for the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on November 12th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Everybody okay with the agenda? Okay. Carried. Now the adoption of the minutes.
It is moved by Roland Larrabee and seconded by Kathleen Marchand. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on October 8th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Everybody had a chance to read over the minutes? All is okay? All right, so call it to vote. Everybody okay? Carried. Okay, so we'll move on to our only item tonight, 5.1, the zoning bylaw amendment application, ZBLA 2024/13.
Yes, it is moved by Kathleen Marchand and seconded by Dan Gagne. Whereas a public meeting was held on November 12th, 2024 for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45, and whereas written concerns or objections have been received to the proposed amendment and included in this report, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee of the Municipality of West Nipissing recommends, number one, that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopt the zoning bylaw to rezone the property on Nipissing Street and more particularly shown on the attached sketch following the completion of a hydrogeological study that concludes that there is sufficient groundwater to support the proposed development without negatively impacting the adjacent properties, and that Schedule H5-1 of bylaw number 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the properties shown on Schedule A attached here too, which properties are more particularly described as part of Lot 3, Concession B, Part 1, on Plan 36R-15253, Municipality of West Nipissing, from rural to rural residential exception zone 5. Mouthful. Through you, Mr. Chair, this application is to permit the construction of 2 additional residential units on the second story of an accessory structure and to permit a home industry, which is a permitted use, to have an additional floor area. So we're going from a permitted 140 square meters up to 225.
Okay.
Plus there's that height.
Yes, sorry, thank you. And to increase the height permissions.
From what, sorry, from what?
Sorry, let me just pull up that really quickly here. And I will note that there was a petition received from members of the public in the area, and that has been included in the staff report. And another one was received Friday evening, so that has been provided on your desk, just because it wasn't able to get added into the agenda. And that accessory height structure is to go from a permitted height of 7.5 meters up to 8.3 meters.
All right. Okay, do we have any questions from our panel? Gerard, okay, go ahead.
I have a question. I know there's a water issue in that area, because I know people that actually live there. So what's the process in regards to identifying if there's enough water source? And what happens if there isn't sufficient water source, like so much gallon? And do we know how much gallon that they need per minute to be able to suit 3 living areas plus the commercial space also?
So through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have the floor plans for the principal dwelling unit yet to provide those calculations. What's being recommended here is, should the committee recommend approval of this zoning bylaw amendment, it would be conditional on them obtaining a hydrogeological study, and that would be undertaken to show that they would have to provide that calculation of how much water they do need. And then once that's established, they would have to do this hydrogeological study to identify that they would have sufficient groundwater there to actively support their development properly without changing the existing conditions for any of the neighboring properties.
So currently, we don't have any idea how much gallon of water they need per minute? Or we're looking at 3 dwellings plus a commercial property. We don't have an idea. It's at 4 gallons, 5, 20 gallons per minute. We have no idea.
Unfortunately, we don't have that number yet, no.
Okay.
Once they have their plans prepared for the principal dwelling, they'll have those numbers set up, and they do have to do their plans with an architect and an engineer given the commercial building. So once all those details have been sorted out, then they will have that number, and that's what the person conducting that hydrogen study will utilize to make sure that there's no concerns there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions on this application? Anybody from the audience have any questions?
Or comments.
Or comments, yes. Go ahead, ma'am.
If you would stand.
State your name and your address, please.
My name is Roseanne Bruder. I live at 623 Nipissing Street. I wonder how this rezoning issue is going to impact the resale of the value of my property. Being that I'm now designated as residential, having a commercial residential, would set precedents to allowing additional commercial residential properties coming in, whether they're acceptable in that community. I'm not going to comment, but it will impact, in the end, it will impact the value of my property in the end. Not only that, like you have discussed in the beginning, the water issue and the impact it will have on the surrounding areas. We are a residential area. There's a substantial amount of senior citizens living in that area. I just am totally opposed to having a commercial residential rezoning put in.
Thank you. Anybody can, the only query I have is if it goes from an R1 to an R5, is that because we're asking for R5, correct?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the current property is zoned rural. In our zoning bylaw, if you are a property designated as rural, that's under 4 hectares, so 10 acres, the rural residential zoning standards apply, recognizing that it is a smaller lot. And that use does permit a home industry, which is what's proposed. So any property on Nipissing Street currently would be permitted to have a home industry. What that variance is not to permit said use. It's simply to expand the amount of floor area. So our zoning bylaw would permit anyone to have a home industry limited to 140 square meters. And this variance would permit that to exceed and go to 225 square meters.
Does it end up being a commercial designation?
No, so we would be
it's
going
still-
to a rural residential zone, which is essentially what it is now, and then a rural residential 5, which is a site-specific zone that will apply just to this property.
That's what I thought. So we're
Yes.
going to R5 and certainly not a commercial, that any other commercial establishment could go in thereafter.
It's to a rural residential 5, so say they sell the property in 10, 15 years, a different home industry would be permitted to come in and utilize that space. It is recommended to ensure that that's not super disruptive to the neighbors going forward, that as part of that special provision zone, you scope it to permit only personal recreational uses, so that the next studio is coming in is going to be like a ballet class or boxing. It's not going to go into some
Like a full,
car detailer or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
Commercial, okay, that's what I was hoping for. Go ahead, ma'am.
Could I ask what the initial intention of the seller in severing the lots, what their intention was? Was it commercial or was it residential?
We can't talk, we don't know what the original owner would want to do.
Well, I'm kind of curious.
Just
as
sold the
to-
property to the lady there, so she's making the application, so.
I'm kind of curious as to whether the municipality allowed them to initially sever the lots for commercial use or for residential use.
Yeah, go
If I
ahead.
may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
So essentially what the scope of what they would have been able to do without going through this zoning bylaw amendment process is they would have been able to have their single detached dwelling that's proposed. They would have been able to have one additional unit in that house, maybe a basement apartment sort of thing. And then they would have been able to have their business in this accessory structure on their property. They could have had the use that they're proposed. It would just be limited to 140 square meters.
But this is quite more than 140.
Yes, so that's what
Correct.
the zoning amendment is requesting, is to increase that to permit the 220 square meters.
Which will affect the water and the value of the other property, will it not?
So
go
if
ahead.
I may, thank you. That's the intent of that hydrogeological study. So the recommendation is that if the committee chooses to support this application, that it be conditional on a hydrogeological study being conducted that proves that their proposed development won't impact the existing conditions, so it won't reduce the well quantity of the neighboring properties. And then, so this committee would make their recommendation. If it is in support, then it would be on the applicant to have that study conducted by a qualified professional. Once that study comes back to us that guarantees that it is sufficient water quality, then we would bring the zoning bylaw to council. They would formalize that zoning bylaw, and then the use could continue. If they conduct that hydrogeological study and it comes back saying that there isn't sufficient water availability there to serve this development without impacting the neighbors, then it wouldn't proceed at all.
Do residents have the say in who does the study?
No, so that would just have to be done by a qualified professional. So
Non-biased?
yes, it will have to be non-biased. They would have to hire a professional, so it would be some form of geological engineer, hydrogeological engineer, someone that has those qualifications.
At whose cost?
That is
There.
done at the cost of the applicant.
Absolutely. Your name, sir?
Ron Giroux. I live at 733 Nipissing Street.
Okay,
Now, you're saying that you're going to upgrade the building from 7.5 meters to 8.3? That's to the peak of the roof peak?
that's what they're asking.
How can a building 40 feet by 50 feet, 2 stories, be 8.3 meters high? Not gonna happen. Unless you only got a 4-foot people upstairs, midgets living upstairs or something.
Well, 8.3,
8.3 meters is what, 26, 27 feet at the max?
correct, yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
It's just a two-story building, yeah.
If I may.
So how can you get a 2-story building in there
plus a pitched roof.
Bidding, that's 4,000 square feet there. You know, when you think of it.
Just to qualify, our zoning bylaw, we measure the height from grade to the midpoint between the eaves and the peak. So you will,
From the grade to where?
to the midpoint, the average height between the eaves trough and the ridge, the peak of the roof.
So it's not the peak of the roof.
No. So if the roof's like this, we're measuring height from the grade to about here.
So from the inside roof of the building,
No, midpoint.
midpoint?
Yes.
Yeah, halfway between the eaves trough and the peak of that roof.
Till then, that's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight to do.
So they will have to comply with the building code requirements to ensure that there is sufficient head height for the proposal. And they have had drawings prepared that have not been reviewed yet by the building, chief building official because they haven't submitted their permit yet. But that will be a requirement, obviously, of the development that they have the sufficient headroom.
Okay, I'm the one that did the petition, I'm the one that ran all the houses. And, I would say about 6 homes never got a letter from you guys about this meeting here in the proposed zone bylaw.
Yeah, because it's just the immediate, is it 250 feet around the property that gets
120 meters.
120 meters?
Yes.
Well, how come the first person up at Kined, he got it? And the other one at the other end never got it, and he's a lot closer.
I cannot answer, so.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And there was people in between them that had it and some that didn't. So it's not fair. It's not fair for the residents if they haven't received a letter.
So through you, Mr. Chair, our procedure is that we rely on the mailing addresses that are associated with the municipal taxes. And we pull a list of properties within the 120 meters of the proposed. And we make that mailing list and all letters get sent out at the same time to all of those residents that are on that list, to those addresses that we have.
Well, there were people a lot further and went to 120 meters that got it, like they were 800 meters away. And they got it.
That I can't speak to, unfortunately.
So, anyway, that's one point. I seen the recommendation that the fire chief was asked to comment on the fire safety. He mentioned that in here that it could draw water from the lake. I doubt that very much unless they go half a mile out in the lake. Anybody who uses that landing knows darn well there's no water. It's all mud. In the wintertime, you're still gonna have to go out half a mile out. The ice is frozen right to the bottom. I mean, there's 40, 50 vehicles parked there every winter. So I don't think that comment from the fire chief is, how should I say that? It isn't, it's a little absurd.
Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
I see in the plans for the main floor of the studio space that there's, so for the studio space or the home business space, there's a full kitchen in addition to a washroom on the main floor and a washroom on the second floor. And the washroom on the second floor also seems to include a shower, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's what I see.
Okay. Is there a reason why all of that space is needed? I guess one of my concerns here with the layout of that space is that the half of the commercial space main floor looks to be laid out so it can be converted into an additional residential unit. Like it's a layout as such where there's a washroom, there's a full kitchen, You know, it could, where it says playroom and chair storage could be bedrooms, and to me, it looks like a layout that could be converted to a three-bedroom unit. And one of my concerns is whether or not, you know, we would already be going on beyond what the residential recommendations are for that property and adding 2 additional residential units. And, my concern is down the line that there would be a conversion of that space into an additional living unit.
Should,
I don't,
do you want to, do we?
I don't know that I have a question with that. I've just, you know, like, we are setting precedent here when we're making exceptions. And to me, it is a rural residential zone, and because of the limitations to properties that are not serviced by city services, you know, we just want to be cautious that we're not creating even further problems down the line.
Do we, Madame, you're the owner of the property. Go ahead, state your name.
Jeanette Hachance, 32 Spring Street. So for the reasoning behind having a shower, that can be removed. It doesn't necessarily have to be there. It's just that the instructors sometimes they sweat, they like to take a shower, they have their lockers. That's the reasoning behind that. The reasoning behind the full kitchen is because sometimes we host birthday parties, and so we have like pop in there and popcorn for the kids, and our water bottles for whatever, like the instructors or the kids. So we have that in there, and from time to time, we're going to order pizza for them, or we're going to have little get-togethers. We do that twice a year. We do a Halloween party and a Christmas party for the children. So right now, that's what we have, and it's nice to have that so that we can offer that for the kids. It's not very often that we do that. Like I said, it's usually a few times a year. And we also, twice a year, we do a fundraiser. One is to support children's charity. We always do one a year. We call it Kick for Kids. And then we do women's self-defense. So if it's a problem having a kitchen in there, that could be, like, if you don't want, say, the oven or the fridge would be nice to keep, because that's where we keep our refrigerated drinks and stuff. But that's the reasoning behind wanting that. And then we have a bathroom upstairs, because my husband's office would be upstairs, and the bathroom downstairs would be for the kids, or if parents are watching their children. That's the reason. Does that answer?
Can I add, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
go ahead.
Just to address your comments about it being converted to a third additional unit, that would be a violation of the zoning bylaw. So it would be handled, and they would either have to come back for another zoning amendment to permit that additional unit, or it would need to be converted back into the space that it was approved for.
Okay.
I can assure you there is no intention at all. We've been doing martial arts for years and years. It's not that we want to do any apartment or anything, or have a fourth.
Are you currently the studio that's on Queen?
Yes, yeah. We're right behind the flower shop right now.
Any more questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How many students are you gonna have per classes? How many students do you have?
So our maximum is 12 kids, but the average is about 8.
Okay.
So sometimes we have 4, sometimes we have 8, sometimes we have 12. It varies. And for the traffic, it's not usually it's not 12 people that are there, because it's sometimes we offer family class, which has 4 people from the same family. So we have mom and dad and the 2 kids, or we have, mom and the 2 kids, or we have siblings coming in together. usually if one child is in it, they have two kids in it. So it's not always 12 cars that are going to be there.
Okay. And then what are your hours of operations currently? And what are you looking at in that area actually?
So right now, we're doing from, like on the Monday nights, we start a little bit earlier. It's 5 o'clock. And so we're done at 9.
Okay.
So, but most nights is 6 to 9.
Okay. And weekends?
Weekends, once a month. The odd time right now, we do birthday parties, and that's why there's we call it the party room. Again, that's something that we don't have to do. We do it once a month right now because there's not a lot of places to host birthday parties for children in the area. So we've been doing it there. So we thought we could maybe offer that over there. It's not necessary. If it's a problem, we can easily, just take that out if you're not in agreement with that.
What's the maximum amount of people you're going to be able to have in that hall?
For the birthday
You know,
parties or
no,
all together?
Let's say you host a birthday party and I want to invite 60 people to my birthday.
No, the maximum is 10 children.
Okay,
And then we have the 2 instructors that host the
Okay.
party.
okay,
And then if some parents want to stay, say if the children they're still little or whatever, sometimes we have a few parents staying. And it's maximum 2 hours.
okay.
And it's once a month right now that we host that.
Okay.
And oftentimes we don't even have anybody that books it, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any more questions from our resident? Go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry, I agree with, I'm sorry, I can't read.
Kathleen Arsham.
Okay, I agree with you that you're setting precedents here. You're allowing them to, if this were to go through and they change the zoning to RR5, you're allowing them to go through. What's to stop anybody else from going through that might have an undesirable business coming through on our street? We are residential. The amount of senior people in our residence is phenomenal. So we can't take the traffic, we can't take the additional costs equated to it, whether it be water, whether it be taxes, whether it be anything. We can't take it. We're on pensions. The fact that this is going to become a presidential, I wonder, first of all, if this is, I know in the diagram you had a house there. Are you living in this house? So your instructors, can they not go home and shower? Like, why do we have to design something with all these accommodations that can be, and everybody knows times change. Look at COVID. Times change. What happens when something like that happens again and we have to change everything and then it becomes a residential? Are we going to pursue, like, this is the ideas that I have. Is this going to be changed later on? If we change it to an RR5 now, what's to stop us from doing it to other properties in that area? We are a residential. We have an astronomical amount of seniors living in that area. We cannot afford all the impact that this will have on us.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Obviously, it'll be up to the existing lots that are on Nipissing Street now. I believe there's only one more vacant lot beside them that, anybody could choose to do what they want with their property. So it's not up to us to deal with that. We're only here to see about her application and not what the rest of the neighborhood or the municipality can take. So it's not up to us to take that responsibility.
And my question is, first of all, whether or not the property was severed to accommodate a residential or to accommodate a commercial? What was it sold for? What
Go
was
ahead.
it severed for?
Go ahead.
What was the purpose?
It was farmland before, and it was severed into lots.
Exactly. And
From Kinneil all the way down to Manamalu.
so my question is there a little bit of deceit going on here? Because if it was severed to accommodate residential, why is it being now questioned for commercial residential?
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, the original applicant is not the applicant of this application. This is the new owner that are applying for it. When the original owner went through for that severance, they were severing lots that would have been subject to the RR regulations, which do permit a home industry. Every single person on this street would be permitted to have their own home industry, whatever that industry is, to an area of 1,500 square feet. So if every single person in here wanted to have some form of business, that would be permitted. So I think we just need to clarify that we're not looking to add that commercial use here. It's just the size of the commercial use that we're expanding. But again, anyone is permitted to have a home industry on the street. So when the original applicant severed it, there was that permission originally intended on this property.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kathleen.
So you're classifying the use as home industry? But the definition of home industry under the zoning bylaw is small scale light industrial use, where this is not an industrial use, this is recreational use.
So that is an internal intent that has been taken since the existence of the zoning bylaw. The home industry has always been applied just as essentially a home occupation is any home business that's in the principal dwelling, and any home industry is any personal home business that's in an accessory structure. That's the interpretation that's been taken on this for the past decade.
Really dislike when interpretations don't match with definitions.
And that is, sorry, not to interrupt, that is noted as one of the updates for our current zoning and official plan update.
I'll state my position on this. I'm a little uncomfortable with the extent of the intensification. So if we were dealing with an application that was looking at just the expansion.
Sorry, I'm
The
sorry,
doors
sir.
need to stay
Can't
open
close
Must
it.
Because
stay
it's a
open.
public meeting?
No,
because it's a public meeting.
we opened the other one instead?
It's just a little noisy there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we deal with that every meeting.
Thank
We're
you.
missing part of that. Yeah. Not.
Yeah, maybe we
I
could.
can speak to the back of the room, so I can.
As long as
I'm hard of hearing and
Yeah.
with all that back noise there, I can't hear what you're saying.
If you can talk. to
Okay,
the
yeah,
back
I
of
will
the
say
room,
that again.
just
So
don't put your
I am a
hand
little
in front of your mouth.
uncomfortable with the extent of the intensification of use on this property because it is zoned as a residential. So if we were being addressed only with the expansion of the square footage of the home industry, I would be comfortable with that. If we were dealing only with an application to have an additional unit, I would be comfortable with that. If we were dealing only with the application to have the building height, which to me isn't that big of a deal, but it comes, then I would be okay with that. But when you have when you have a property that's zoned residential, the primary use of that property should be residential. And, and rural residential generally is single family use with the availability of an indwelling secondary dwelling unit, right?
Yes.
So there are a lot of asks in this particular application that make me uncomfortable with the level of intensification, and I do think it sets a bad precedent. If the application were only about making that home industry space bigger, I think that there could be an argument made for that, but I think that on top of the additional 2 dwelling units in a detached accessory dwelling, I just think it's a big ask and it's very, very far from the intent of the zoning bylaw. And that's
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you.
Totally agree with you.
Okay. I tend to agree. but, okay, go ahead.
If I may, not making a recommendation on your decision, but given the comments of the owner, there seems to be some flexibility on amending the proposal and kind of reducing the scope of the request. So I would just put it out there that it is an option to defer your decision, to allow some further discussion and revisions with the owner to bring back at a later date, if that's something you would be
Yeah,
willing to consider.
What's your time?
I agree.
You agree with it? Mark, do you have any questions or anything to mention on this application?
Oh, you're on mute,
You're on
Mark.
mute. You're still on mute? No? Okay.
I would be willing to make a motion to defer this to the next planning advisory committee meeting to allow, because I do think, first of all, I think that having activities for children in our communities is super important. And I want to encourage small business. I just want to do it in a way that's respectful of the intent of the zoning bylaw. So I'd like to put a motion on the table to defer this item to the next planning advisory committee.
And what are we, okay, and then at which point do we ask for the client to reduce? Or do we do a recommendation?
Discuss the deferral now, so the reasons for the deferral. So if anybody else, if you have, well, you can't add anything, but if you have anything to add that you would like the planners to take back to the applicants, as far as, kind of, or if I've said it all.
You've said it all, so I agree with your comments.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor, so I don't think. we can
sorry.
Oh, yeah. It's only on the deferral though, just as a procedure thing, so for the reasons of deferral, but we can get back to you, so.
Okay, so we're going to defer to,
Take a vote officially.
okay. So I'll bring it to a vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so is everybody in favor of this application or,
No, defer, what, in
Oh,
favor
we're
of the deferral.
okay.
Sorry,
Is
Roger.
everybody in favor of deferring this application to the next? Okay, carried. All right.
All right.
So what this means is we're deferring for until December and then,
The applicant's gonna work with our planning department to address some of the concerns. Yes.
If I may
Yes,
ask
go
that
ahead.
the motion to defer be to a later meeting, not December, just given I know holidays are coming up and scheduling, I don't want to,
just in case.
yeah, just in case they can't get to
Okay, I'm
their,
sorry.
that's okay,
So-
it's okay, but
So
just to
we're
give
To a
them,
later meeting.
yes.
To a later meeting.
Is that, no, are we okay with that? Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Okay, so the application is now amended to a later date. And I guess the planner will be consulting with the owner to see what can be done to reduce what we're asking for. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a question. Will the same notices be sent out to the neighboring property owners, informing them of when this item will come back, or is there a way to communicate? I'm sure you have some contact information from the petitions or other email communication on this. So is there a method of communicating with the neighboring property owners as to when this will be back?
Yes, so once the application is brought back, we will do the same circulation that was done before. And I recognize that your point that you made about the inconsistency maybe, because we do it based kind of on the property and what corners it touched, sometimes it doesn't exactly go from someone's doorstep. But I will definitely take a look at what those properties are, and if there's kind of an awkward gap, try to include them in that list.
Do we still
Okay.
take questions or?
I believe at this time that motion is,
Yeah.
We're now,
that item's handled.
yeah,
Has nothing to do with that. I just want to tell you something about our addresses.
go ahead.
when Sturgeon Falls changed all our addresses, gave us new numbers, new whatever, they never changed it in the computers here. So that's why we're not getting our mail.
Oh.
If you have any.
I've only reported this 5 times already.
Okay, if you can, I believe my email contact something is somewhere. So again, if you follow up this with the municipality, my apologies. And you can include me in that and I'll
Okay.
add
The
it to
last time I said I wasn't paying my taxes if I wasn't getting the bill.
yeah. Reach out with that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
After 5 times, really.
Okay. We'll,
Can I just inquire, when this next hearing goes as far as this application, will the testing be done as far as the water goes, or is that going to be held over until?
yeah, unfortunately, we do have to wait till the application comes back.
Okay. May
I'll just speak to that. If it is approved, what would happen is with any I'll speak to the back part there. With any zoning bylaw amendment, it does come to council. So this is a planning advisory committee. We would make a motion with a recommendation to council. So what staff has proposed as far as process is that if the application is approved, the hydrological study would be done and completed before it was brought to council for final approval. So until it comes before all of council, it is not finalized, and the recommendation from staff is that hydrological study be available for council to review before council would make a final decision on that. So that would kind of be the process, would be approval at this body, which is an advisory committee to council. The hydrological study would be done at that time, and then it would return to council with the recommendation of the advisory committee plus the hydrological study before a final decision was made on the zoning bylaw.
And if I may, just because the decision has been made to defer it, because we've kind of wrapped that up, but we shouldn't be discussing
Yes,
it any longer
sorry.
because that decision's been made and all the kind of discussion is held within that bubble, I'll say. And I was incorrect. It will not be recirculated. So anyone that wants to be notified will have to send written requests to be notified. So if you send it to my email, which is swillock, SWILLOCK @westnipissing.ca, it's written on the notice you got last time. If you send me an email, once this comes back, you will be circulated on it again.
These meetings are the second Tuesday of every month, and usually the agendas are posted the Thursday prior. So, if you take a look at the municipal website, you can pull up the agenda and see when it's on as well if you're just keeping track. So.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to the provincial planning statement 2024.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. This is a memo that's been prepared as per request at last month's meeting. As we all know, the provincial planning statement for 2024 came into effect on October 20th. This just highlights some of the key changes between the previous planning act or the previous planning statement and the current one, and certain matters that will likely affect our decision-making going forward. So if you give it a read through and have any questions, more than welcome to reach out.
Okay. This is from just the planning board to get back to you if we have any queries on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so we'll move on to the adjournment.
Yes, please. It is moved by Dan Gagne and seconded by Roland Larrabee. Be it resolved that the meeting of the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee held on November 12th, 2024 be adjourned.
Everybody in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Everyone enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment. Sorry, we're a little behind. For November 12th, 2024. We're supposed to get going at 6:30. This is a quasi judicial quorum, which means that their decisions tonight are final, but only after the 20-day appeal period, okay? So if you have any questions during the meeting, please raise your arm. State your name, your address, so it could be added to the minutes of the meeting, okay? So we will start by the declaration of any pecuniary interests. Hearing none, we're okay. Let's do the adoption of the agenda, please.
Yes, it is moved by Jonathan Sandford and seconded by Campbell Anderson. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on November 12th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Everybody okay with the agenda? Go ahead.
No, that's
Oh,
all in favor.
okay.
Sorry.
Everybody's in favor? So let's do the adoption of the minutes, please.
It is moved by Campbell Anderson and seconded by Jonathan Sandford. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on October 8th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Hearing everything's okay, we'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Carried. The, what's the agency comments?
That's just where they're filtered in. You can move on to
Okay.
number 5.
All right. So we'll move on to the applications for our 5.1. Number 1, C47/24. Alain or Betty and Jen Rioux.
It is moved by Jonathan Sandford and seconded by Campbell Anderson. Be it resolved that the consent application made by Elaine Betty and Diane Rio for the creation of new lots at Piquette Road, Municipality of West Nipissing, is approved on the following conditions: that a reference plan be prepared and deposited in the Land Registry Office, and a copy of the new survey be filed with municipality; confirmation that all property taxes are paid up to date; that all conditions be met on or before November 13th, 2026, being 2 years from the date of giving notice of consent; that a transfer be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of a certificate of consent in the event that any portion of municipally maintained and traveled road be located on either the severed or retained lands, that 10 meters from center line of the maintained and traveled roadway, including the retained lands, shall be surveyed at the owner's cost and transferred to the municipality, and that the municipal clerk shall, pursuant to Section 65(1) of the Drainage Act, instruct the municipal engineer to apportion the assessment for drainage maintenance among the parts into which the land are being divided. The cost of that apportionment shall be borne by the applicant. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a fairly standard application we're seeing. So they're doing the creation of 2 new lots, and each new lot has an area of 2 hectares, 5 acres.
Okay, thank you. I guess very straightforward. Do we have any questions from our board members?
Could you just explain the line that goes around the house? Is that not part of the original?
Sorry, let me just share screen so everyone knows what we're talking about here, and I can pull it up and see for myself. The one that goes along the existing house, that was a previous severance that was conducted.
That's right. Prior owner.
Okay.
So is there currently any residential building on the, like the farm buildings are included in the lot that we're looking at? Is there a residential
There is not.
structure on that?
I'm just gonna ask your name. I'm
My
not
name is
familiar
Diane.
with you, ma'am. So
Sorry, my name's Diane Reed.
Diane Rioux, okay. Thank you.
I
Go
have
ahead.
a question for Banner. The current zoning is RU on that?
That is correct, yes.
And the new lots will retain the RU and they will be proper RU because they're 5 acres. Is it 5 acres or 10 acres?
It's 10 acres, so they
Okay.
will be kept as RU. That will be their formal zoning category. But then functionally, because of our zoning bylaw, the setbacks and the uses permitted will be subject to the rural residential standards.
You know, that's another note of mine for.
I'll write it down.
Sorry, we're doing official plan amendments and I don't think that property should say RU when there really are, like, let's just change it. But So currently, the rest of the property is farm production.
That's correct.
There's going to be just a little bit of loss of farmland on
A
that,
very small area.
about an acre.
The area in question is highly shaded because of the rocky outcrop and the trees. And short of cutting all the trees down on the rock, there's not much we can do to make it more productive. The farm is primarily a hay farm.
Okay,
Right now, it's being rotated, it has rotated crops on it, but it's primarily for hay. And what happens is we grow the hay, we can't cut that area because it doesn't dry as fast, and then we run into issues with it anyway. And by adding it to these severed lots, it gives options for a future builder for sewer and septic, so on and so forth.
I hate to see farmland lost, but it's very little, so I understand that, and I can see where the shading would be, and when it's RU, it's not A1 or A2, so it's not really considered ag, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Perfect. Any more questions from our panel? No? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to number 2, C52/24, Marc d'Amboise.
It is moved by Campbell Anderson and seconded by Jonathan Sandiford. Be it resolved that the consent application made by Marc d'Amboise and Brendan Markison for an addition to a lot at 1551B Tomaco Road, Municipality West Nipissing, is approved on the following condition. The reference plan be prepared and deposited in the Land Registry Office, and a copy of the new survey be filed with the municipality. Confirmation that all property taxes are paid up to date, that all conditions be met on or before November 13th, 2026, that a transfer be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, and that a property identification number consolidation be registered in the Land Registry Office in order to consolidate the lot addition lands with the lands to which they're being added. And 3, Mr. Chair, if I may request, this number 2 on our application is also tied to the next application, the cancellation of prior consent and the minor variance.
For the minor variance?
Are you okay for me to read through all of the resolutions and then
Yes,
discuss
because
as
I
one?
saw that they're all the same name, so I was gonna ask,
Yes.
let's do everything at the same time.
Thank you. So that was resolution number 2024-098. The next one being resolution number 2024-101. It is moved by Jonathan Sandiford and seconded by Campbell Anderson, whereas a certificate of consent was given on August 3rd, 2011 for the lands described as part of Lot 8, Concession 6, being Part 2, Plan 36R-13106. And whereas 2 properties have been purchased by the same owners, and whereas the owners are requesting a certificate of cancellation of the consent granted in order to consolidate the lands for which the consent was granted into one parcel, be it resolved that a certificate of cancellation be granted pursuant to Section 5345 of the Planning Act for the lands described as part of Lot 8, Concession 6, being Part 2, Plan 36R-13106. Be it further resolved that the certificate of cancellation shall provide subsection 5012 does not apply to respect to the lands that were subject to the consent, and that subsection 53 or 5, as the case may be, applies to any subsequent conveyance or other transaction involving the land. And the final resolution for this property, it is moved by Campbell Anderson and seconded by Jonathan Sandiford. It is decision of the Committee of Adjustment to approve the variance application made by Marc d'Amboise and Brendan Markison at 1551B Tomaco Road to reduce the lot area from 1 hectare to 0.7 hectares for the following reasons. It meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The variance is considered desirable for the appropriate development of the property. And in the opinion of the committee, the variance is minor in nature. So a lot went on there.
Yes.
Essentially, the property owners currently own 2 properties that are adjacent. Looking at where they want to build the cottage on the one property, they're looking to do a lot addition to shuffle where that line is. The cancellation is so that we can actually add that lot addition into that property. Otherwise, without that cancellation, they would be able to sell that tiny portion separately, which we clearly don't want to see. And then that lot reduction from 1 hectare to 0.5 is to protect the severed parcel. So when these properties were originally created, it was under the previous zoning bylaw. So the minimum lot area was, I believe, half an hectare.
Yeah.
So the lots that are being added to are legal non-conforming in lot area because they were in existence before the current zoning bylaw. and we're only adding to them and increasing their compliance. So there's no variance required for that. We just require the variance for the lands that are being taken from. A lot going on just to essentially move a property line.
So we're going from, for retained, we're going from 1 hectare down to 0.799,
Correct.
and that's what the variance is for?
Yes, so that is what the variance is for.
And the other one was only 0.5, so it'll be added, so there'll be more equal in size. Correct? Correct, Mr. Goodrich?
Correct.
All right.
And I apologize for the jagged lot line. Just before you got to it.
Yeah. But I think it makes sense because of the power line that goes through there, right?
Exactly. And
You ran it in line with the power line that's going through.
that's it exactly. And initially, we were hoping the new line would come more at 90 degrees to the water line because that always, messes people up later.
Okay.
Samantha made a good point, though, that it left it a little bit tight at the back. So she had asked if it was okay with our client if we could swing it back a little bit to the north. So we swung it enough that we retained a minimum 66-foot width so that, there's a full width of a municipal street now to be able to put a driveway for the retained land to be able to get out to the road.
Perfect.
So it was a good idea. My client liked it. So really didn't impact where they wanted to build. So he was fine with it.
Okay, awesome. Any more questions from our panel? No? Hearing none, we'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Carried.
If I may, if we can speak to which
The
ones
other
we're
two.
talking about.
Okay, so the number 2, the C52 is carried.
C52, yep.
Then the cancellation, do we have any questions on that? I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor?
Sorry, what is it I'm that part I'm confused about. I know we're gonna approve it, but I just want to understand.
The
like-
cancellation.
So there was a former consent that what, took something out or?
So on the screen here, what I'm highlighting, not
Mhm.
straight, in yellow, that was the previous severance line. So
Okay,
there's where those lots previously were. So we're trying to cancel the consent on this property,
okay.
on this property.
That was the severed and the,
On this, because otherwise,
Yeah.
when we create this lot addition triangle,
Mhm.
without canceling that consent, we can't actually properly merge the
Can't
two
marry.
sections together, and they could be sold them
It's all-
separately.
it's all paperwork.
Yes.
It's all just legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta get divorced quick.
So on the cancellation, everybody in favor? Carried. And then on the minor variance
Minor variances for what?
is where,
Oh, the reduction of lot
yeah,
size.
we're down to
Yeah.
0.779, and then that 0.5 would be too small, so we're adding to it to make them more equal.
I actually like this application because it does upsize that small lot.
Yes.
That's
And like Roger said, it
Yeah.
balanced the two were
Yeah.
now both.
More of equal size.
basically the same size.
So everybody in favor for the minor variance? Carried also. All right, so now we have another minor variant. The MV 2024/16, Richard Pendlebury. Sorry if I don't announce it properly.
Better than most, actually, that's good.
Okay. Go ahead.
It is moved by Jonathan Sandford and seconded by Campbell Anderson. Is the decision of the Committee of Adjustment to approve the variance application made by Richard Pendlebury, 64 St. Jean Road, to reduce side yard setback from 3 meters to 1.2 meters and to reduce the rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6.36 meters for the following reasons. It meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The variance is considered desirable for the appropriate development of the property, and in the opinion of the committee, the variance is minor in nature. So this is essentially a voluntary reconstruction of an existing dwelling. These are the new owners of the property. I believe they were originally intending to do a bit of a remodel. Given the condition, it's now going to be a demolish and rebuild, and they're looking to build the new dwelling in the same situation as the existing dwelling. And they do have written acknowledgement from the property owner to the rear that he does intend to sell them a portion of lands to add onto the back of their property. So not exactly sure when that is coming, but that is something that is in the works between the two. So I expect that rear yard setback reduction will no longer really be needed in the next months or a year or two.
Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay, so the large area of land behind that has a number that I don't have arms long enough to see. That's the gentleman that's going to be,
I have the same question, so
yes,
that's why.
so it's that's one large
So
parcel of land in behind?
Yes, so the property in behind is quite large.
Okay, and
It's-
so he's gonna line up with the other two, that's the plan?
That's the plan, yeah, essentially to kind of keep that in line with the adjacent properties.
Okay. So then the rear yard we need to approve the rear yard setback, but if that goes through, then the rear yard setback would be compliant at that point with a lot addition.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so everything will be constructed on the bigger side of the property and nothing in front, right?
That is correct. I
Okay.
believe there is currently possibly an existing accessory structure on the property south of the right-of-way between the road and Lake Nipissing. But at this time, there's no current proposed structures on that portion.
Okay,
Can you
Go ahead.
explain to us why the side yard setback reduction is required?
It is the intent of the property owners to do it in the existing situation. I believe they may be intending to retain some of the existing structure that's there. That and given the rock configuration kind of at the back left corner of that house, trying to keep it in that location.
What's the setback on the current structure?
The current setback is 1.2 meters.
So they're not making anything any worse than it already is?
Oh, it's just staying the same.
Yes. Yeah, if anything, I do believe they may be making the rear yard setback better because they are moving the house a little bit closer to the road, still in compliance. And obviously that rear yard setback, there is intent to reduce it in the future, but the current house, I do believe, is closer to 6 meters to the rear property line.
No, it's just the side yard setback. It's
Yeah.
close for a shoreline property.
Yes, yes, that's where the existing one is.
Okay, that's.
all right. Any more questions? No, hearing none, I'll bring it to a vote. Everybody in favor? Carried. You're good to go.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good luck with the build. Are you guys new to West Nipissing?
I've been here for 4 years. She's new.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you love it. That's a beautiful area there.
Yes, we do. It's the reason we bought our place. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, the provincial planning statement.
Yes, this was mentioned at our last meeting, but I'll repeat it again for the members that aren't on planning
That's right,
advisory.
they weren't here.
At a previous planning advisory committee request, at planning advisory committee meeting, there was a request to put together kind of a memo outlining the key changes between the 2020 PPS and the 2024 PPS, which came into effect on October 20th. So this is just kind of a quick summary of the major changes that will kind of affect what we do on a more daily basis. I obviously still encourage you to read through the whole new planning statement. But if you just kind of want a better idea of what the new changes are and how they compare to our previous policy, you can read through that, and any questions, you're more than welcome to send to me.
And it's in the, yeah, so if you want to read through it, then bring it with you. Go ahead, Kathleen.
For those of you who are geeks about this stuff, if you do a quick Google search too, there are a lot of different kind of municipal law firms that have done a similar kind of consolidation that touch on different things. So if it's like, if you really can't sleep one night, there's some great information and great kind of discussion on what some of these changes mean from a planning perspective.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. All right, the adjournment.
It was moved by Kathleen Marchand and seconded by Jonathan Sandiford. Be it resolved that the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment held on November 12th, 2024 be adjourned.
Everybody in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
You guys hardly had to be here today.
I know,
Yeah.
this was awesome.
Should have stayed home and watched the game.
Hello,
Who's playing tonight?
next meeting.
Next meeting will be December
December 10th.
10th.
And I recognize that we're getting into holidays, so if anyone knows already that that day won't work for them, please send me an email and we can look at it.
That's a busy week.
It is. All right.
We got planning.
Pardon?
Sorry, we're adjourned. We got planning, senior supper, and the co-op AGM.